was the Pope appealing for peace, or was he praying for peace?
And the same applies to the carry-on drag.
Yeah, that's a good question. So what do you have to say about that, guys? Good morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are, and welcome to the latest edition of Views on the News. Now, I'm very pleased to say that we have a wonderful panel for you tonight with the wise and the witty from all over the world. First of all, we have new boy Diogo Duarte, who's in Portugal. Welcome, Diogo.
Good evening.
Then we have Bryce Cornell, who is an old hand at this. Welcome, Bryce, from, I believe, Texas at the moment. Then we have Guy from Manchester. He's a regular. Nice to see you, Guy. And David from New York again, another regular. Thanks for coming, David.
My pleasure.
And Tersia, I'm going to put you top and center, Tersia, because that's how important you are. There you go. Look at that. See? Mm-hmm. Thank you for coming. And finally, from British Columbia, we have Dread Pirate Higgs, our token Castilian. Okay, so here we go, guys. The first item of news, there's been, as you know, global events spill over into cities anywhere. So we have had thousands of people in a pro-Palestinian march in London. Dread, I'm gonna mute you because you're making noises. And there we go. And we've had a pro-Palestinian march in London, calling for a ceasefire in Gaza. Don't we all wish for a ceasefire in Gaza? That's not news. Demonstrators carried placards emblazoned with "ceasefire now," and there was a giant puppet of a Syrian child refugee. Simultaneously, I think, there was thousands of people attended a pro-Israel rally in London to mark 100 days since the 7th of October attacks, and also to call for the release of, in this case, hostages from Gaza. So who else is that? Somebody else has joined us. Oh, it's Ty. Welcome, Ty. I'll bring you on in a minute. So that was going on in two different locations in London, and at one of these rallies, we had a Muslim named Mohammed El-Kurd who said, let me just say hello to Ty. Welcome to come. Welcome to see you, Ty. Thank you.
Happy to be here. Hello, beautiful people.
Yeah, I exclude myself from that list, of course. We had, listen to this guy. You won't believe this. It's shocking.
I dare you to look into the eyes of a godly child and tell him that you tried your best. Our day will come, but we must not be complacent. Our day will come, but we must normalize massacres as the status quo. Thank you.
Normalize massacres as the status quo. Give me your reactions.
May I say something?
Go ahead.
So we all know that this conflict is based on because Israel is kind of an ethno state. They don't like their neighbors, and so they oppress Palestine, and therefore Palestine doesn't have a proper government, and therefore it's everything going down the drain with them. The Palestinians are the oppressed people, but this is things like this is really problematic still. I wouldn't endorse these kind of statements, let's say.
Absolutely not. Yeah,
it's very complicated. The Gaza conflict is very complicated because I don't see any of the sides ending up well at the end.
Yeah.
To me, it's just an illogical position to have. If your goal is peace and prosperity for anyone, but including your own group, to suggest normalizing massacres, how is that going to solve the problem? You know, clearly that's not going to help you. That's just, it's an emotional reaction. You know, it's we need to get revenge. We need to hurt the people who hurt us, but that's not going to stop them from hurting you in the future. That's not bringing prosperity. So it's really kind of a ridiculous position. And I just wish people of intelligence and who have like the critical thinking skills to see how that doesn't logically align with your own end goals would kind of step up and say, no, that's tactically, that's incorrect. That's an incorrect course of action. We should not do that.
Absolutely. Tit for tat just spawns tat for tit.
Everybody wants to talk.
Yeah. Fred.
We can't hear
on
you.
the receiving end of a massacre. He wouldn't be talking that way if he was on the receiving end.
No, maybe not. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's a good point.
Can I say, as what something struck me as odd about that statement that he made, and I would like to, before I comment, and if I had a clear understanding, and if he really meant that we should normalize massacres as in accept that there will be massacres, then I agree with what you said so far.
I can't hear.
The way the sentence was structured makes me just think, I would like to ask him whether he meant that we should normalize massacres as an accept that there must be massacres, or whether perhaps he was trying to say in a very clumsy way, and I'm trying my best to be charitable here to advance the conversation. Maybe he was saying that until something change, until the behavior of governments and states changes, we will have to accept that there will be massacres.
Well, we've got a bit of a problem with your sound, Tersia, but yeah, I see your point. I think he only wanted to normalize massacres of their opponents.
Yeah, I think it comes straight out of the Hamas rule book, doesn't it? I'm afraid.
Well,
And
they do say from the river to the sea.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's
I'm
a
afraid they
call.
do.
That's a call to action.
And yeah, I mean, he it seems like he said this at the very end of his speech, so I don't know if he would have had a very different reaction or was able to elaborate on it if he did it at the beginning of his speech, but he sort of threw it in at the end of his speech. And what it is just a very clear Abrahamic idea of an eye for an eye. And you're going to, and this is the simple but very real problem that both the very radical religious Israelis who don't want to share any land and these Hamas-driven fighters who want to destroy Israel, they're sort of like, remember in Star Trek Beale and Lokai, where one was black on one side and one was white on the other, and they were exactly the same because they're Semitic tribes, but because of this difference in their shading, they were ready to kill each other. In my mind, there's no difference between that parable of Beale and Lokai and what goes on in Israel, not just now, but for dozens of years, if not centuries, simply because this is a religious conflict.
Yeah, that's right. It's one of the problems with the religion is it makes you tribal and hate everybody who's not in your tribe. It's not good.
Well, thanks so much for shattering my optimism so quickly in the show. I did my best to be charitable.
Our pleasure.
I mean, there's an interesting point here that, I mean, this rally for peace is really a coalition. And at one end of the coalition are people who really like Hamas and want to sort of exterminate Jews. And at the other end, there is a huge number of people who are really horrified at the slaughter and the destruction going on and the suffering, and they want a ceasefire for humanitarian reasons. And there's shades in the middle, and I just kind of feel very uncomfortable about this. I would like to see demonstrations, and there have been some of, for instance, there was a demonstration of an organization of Muslims and Jews.
Yes.
Having a joint demonstration for a settlement, for a ceasefire, with justice for both parties.
Yes.
I'd like to see more of that.
Jewish Voice for Peace is one of those groups. Yeah.
We'd all like to see more of that.
Yeah.
Okay. So having put that piece of the world to rights, let's talk about Iran, where you may remember Mahsa Amini died in custody. And according to the UN human rights expert, she died as a result of beatings by the morality police, who had accused her of not wearing her hijab properly. Well, there's an update on that because there were 2 female journalists who reported her death, that original incident. One of them had photographed her father, Mahsa Amini's father, and her grandmother embracing each other, or hugging each other, after they learned that the daughter had died. And she posted it online. This journalist, Ms. Hamedi, posted it online with the caption, "The black dress of mourning has become our national flag." Well, that resulted in her being arrested, along with her colleague, Ilahi Mohammadi. But there's a little bit of good news. After being in prison for, a couple of years, they've now been released on bail because they're appealing against their jail sentences and awaiting a court's decision.
Yes, but there's a bit of an update here, because on release, they went out and did not wear their hijabs in the way that required by the Iranian morality police themselves, and have themselves now incurred a further summons to court in relation to that. So that's quite interesting.
Yeah.
Because these are all non-crimes, and they're being persecuted for their beliefs.
Yes.
It's like thought crime. It's very right out of 1984. It's very Orwellian. The whole idea of a thought police, a morality police. It's just not only violence against free thought, but against freedom of just women being allowed to be free. Very sad.
Yeah.
In a Western country, you can wear a scarf or not, and how you like. It's up to you.
Actually, in France, they've forbidden the hijab, which is the other opposite end of the spectrum. Quite weird. I'm not sure about that decision. I feel it might divide, make it harder for the Muslim population to integrate. But on the other hand, it makes it easier to, how would you say, women, if a woman doesn't want to wear it, it's easier for them to express themselves. Not sure.
It gives a clear delineation between what's legal and what isn't. But France has always been a bit more authoritarian. Ty, come in.
Yeah, I wanted to say, if it's compulsory, that's where, or when it starts to go against the consent of the person, whether it's punishment or, they have to compulsively wear it. That's where it crosses the line. Because I know Dredd can speak up to the idea of he wants to wear his religious garb, but the government won't allow him to. And so there's another end of the spectrum where, the government's stepping in to say, hey, you can't wear your religious regalia. So, you got to pick a side here. Just do it based on consent.
Indeed.
Well, sometimes I think it's better not to pick a side, because that's where the conflict carries on.
I side with consent.
Yeah, maybe there are certain things government shouldn't meddle with.
Yes, absolutely. We don't want clothing police, do we?
Yeah, no. And that's why fundamentalist governments, fundamentalist states are always a problem, because they will impose the the rule of a certain religion on everybody else, even if they don't believe the same things.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, staying with Islam, we have a piece of, I think this is good news, personally. In the UK, we have banned the Hizb ut-Tahrir group as a terrorist organization. We've banned it. It's going to come into effect on Friday, I think. And the Home Secretary has said this group is anti-Semitic and actively promotes and encourages terrorism. This has happened after followers of Hizb ut-Tahrir were accused of chanting jihad at a pro-Gaza rally. So what about that? Is that a step in the right direction?
I think this is actually an overdue thing, because Hizb ut-Tahrir have been around for 20, 30 years, and they've been basically a front organization, I think, for people who believe in jihad. That they are, I think, a Salafist or what we normally think of as extreme Islamic. They certainly believe it in the caliphate and in imposing Islam on the world. They have been described as a non-violent organization.
Well, they've always claimed.
They claim to be non-violent, and they don't use violence to further their ends in this country. I don't think, but you don't know. Some of these lone bombers may well have been members or sympathizers. But they certainly do, approach the line and probably go over it and calling for jihad. Of course, there's been a debate about the meaning of the word jihad.
Yes, that
Police,
too.
for goodness sakes, said, "Oh well, it can mean internal struggle." What a load of bollocks! Have we got no balls? They've got no cojones. Of course, it means violent struggle. That's the context. The Palestinian struggle is not a non-violent struggle. So you think,
that's
I'm
right.
not well acquainted with that group.
Yeah, it is an international group, I think. I think it's been banned in other countries, but I'm not sure about that.
Yeah. So staying with Iran, the border of Iran. This is the eastern border of Iran. Abuts Pakistan and some other countries, but they've got, yes, that's right. They share a piece of border with Pakistan and
also Afghanistan. Yeah,
yes, that's right. And Iran has admitted carrying out a missile and drone attack in western Pakistan, and the Pakistan government in Islamabad said that 2 children were killed and 3 others were injured in the area of Baluchistan, part of western Pakistan. And the Iran foreign minister, Hossein Amir Abdullahian, pardon me, was speaking in Davos, where there's a meeting going on, as you know, an economic gathering of international bigwigs. And he insisted that no Pakistani citizens had been targeted. They said, in Tehran, they said they were targeting Jaish al-Adl, the Army of Justice, which is an ethnic Baloch Sunni Muslim group that has carried out attacks inside Iran as well as on Pakistani government forces. So what we now have is a three-way. It's a three-way, and Pakistan has launched its own missile strikes into Iran, killing 9 people after the Iranian attack in Pakistan. So this is a retaliation. But Pakistan said that its strikes had hit terrorists' hideouts in the southeastern Sistan Baluchistan province of Iran. So it's very confusing what's going on here. They're both trying to claim that they're attacking terrorists that seem to cross the borders. Let's face it, borders are imaginary, aren't they?
Well, and also in that situation, Pakistan clearly had the right to do what it did. Iran did not have the right, because you don't, even if their excuse is true, which we don't know if that's true or not, we don't know who they were targeting, but let's just pretend that they were targeting who they said. They still have no right to fire weapons into the sovereign territory of another nation. That's violating international law. So Pakistan has the right to defend itself from that attack.
Yeah, but I mean, Bryce, I don't think Pakistan was defending itself against Iran. What each side were doing or claiming to do, was targeting the independents and separatist fighters that operate out of, essentially the ones wanting independence from Iran operate out of Pakistan, and the ones operating, wanting independence from Pakistan operate out of Iran.
Sure,
but Baluchistan is quite a large area with its own population, its own culture, its own language, and it's divided between three countries: Afghanistan, Iran, and Pakistan. As a result of arbitrary lines drawn on the map, as John said. The way to solve this is to give them the right to decide their own independence, but of course,
draw a line around them. Yes. So for the benefit of our viewers, I want to tell people that what we have here is a panel of experts, because Bryce, for example, is an ex-American military vet. Yeah.
Well, that sounds very lofty when you put it like that. I don't usually describe myself in that way, but yeah, I guess it is accurate to some extent.
Don't be too modest. And Guy is a retired lawyer. So these are people who know what they're talking about. Thanks for being here, you experts.
Yeah, but I mean, I was not an expert in this area. I've just read the papers over the years, and I've got to understand what it is that the Baluchistan problem poses.
And let me say, I am not an expert in three ways, as you mentioned earlier. But so my definition of what a three-way is very different from what's going on in this part of the country.
Well,
humbly spoken.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure about this region. Is Iran? Isn't Iran allied to Pakistan?
Yes, they're supposed to be. They treat each other as brother and friendly countries.
They do.
But the reality is that Pakistan is a 90% Sunni and oppresses its 10% Shia, whereas Iran is like 80% Shia. And I don't think the Sunnis have too much problem, but I don't know.
This is quite a puzzling situation, right?
I would say that this is very similar. It's not too dissimilar from when the United States attacked Osama bin Laden, who was in Pakistan. I mean, we also launched an attack against Pakistan without the permission of the Pakistani government. It was still Team 6, so not too dissimilar.
It's exactly the same, actually, Bryce. Thank you.
Usually when this kind of thing happens, it's the fault of the colonial British who drew square things on maps.
Yeah, it's always our British fault. Don't worry. It's a sort of default.
Guilty as charged. Yes, that's right. Yeah. So the thing is that it depends where you want to stop in history, doesn't it? I mean, if you want to talk about Iraq, for example, that was a country that was basically Shia, but it was controlled by the Sunni. And we went in there, America and the UK went in there, upset the apple cart, and look at the mess we've left now. Thank you.
The one thing that worries me is I just can't help but think of that quote that is attributed to Einstein. I don't know if it is, that we know what the Third World War will be fought with. The Third World War will be the weapons that we have, and the fourth will be fought with sticks and stones. That's the one thing that worries me, and I'm a little bit perplexed as to this more severe divisions in terms of all groupings. And I wonder what contributes to the stronger lines of division between different groups, Sunni, Shia, Republican, Democratic. It's almost as if everybody's sort of on edge, and us and them becoming a much stronger instinct. And I wonder to what extent the instability caused by COVID and economic insecurity contributes to the
absolutely.
And that's worrisome.
What we need is to drug the entire population with some anti-paranoia pills.
Put them all in a soma coma.
Oh, I love the alliteration.
Or a megasoma coma.
You sure Trump wouldn't be able to do this job?
Maybe. Anyway, we're coming up to him. I'm going to show you a video of him in a minute. But first of all, just so that the US doesn't feel off the hook here, I want to show that nasty things happen there too. Take a look at this.
In a harrowing incident in Nashville, Tennessee, a teenage boy, formerly a Muslim, was assaulted by his own family for converting to Christianity. The teenager, subjected to physical attacks and psychological coercion, was found in a distressed state bearing physical marks of abuse. As described by the assistant general manager of the McDonald's where he worked, quote, "They had him down where they kicked him and beat him unconscious. The mother remains in custody, charged with aggravated assault. The father and brother were released on bond. The teen now resides with a Christian foster family. I want people to see that this happens in America." The details of this case are really sad. He had mentioned to his colleagues how they were threatening him. One of his coworkers said he had come before and said, "My mom put a knife to my throat and said that if I don't deny Jesus, she will kill me."
There you go. What would Jesus do?
Well, I mean, obviously, the Christian family there was nothing improper on their part, and so the question of what Jesus would do, they think they're doing what Jesus would do. And in this case, to me, this isn't so much. I'm glad that you showed that this happens in America and that it's a worldwide thing, but it demonstrates the problem with religion. Like, this isn't really an America problem or any nation problem. This is an Islam problem. It's a theocratic mentality problem, and we have a secular democracy supposedly in our country, but it's certainly one that recognizes that Islam is not the religion that we would come forward to protect in America. And so it's very easy for us to have sympathy for this now Christian boy being abused by these Muslims, because that's the narrative that a lot of Americans want to run with anyway. Right. But if we imagine that it was Christians who were doing this, and there's no reason to believe that this doesn't happen either, whether it's the Jehovah's Witnesses or Mormons or anyone deconverting from evangelical. Evangelicals, this happens to them as well. But would it get the same level of attention or anger that it is when it's a Muslim that converts to Christianity? I don't know that it would.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. David, you want to come in here, I think.
Well, I think Bryce sort of nailed pretty much all the points I wanted to make, except that the violence doesn't always have to be physical. It can be psychological. How many times do you hear people who have changed religion or decided to not have any religion in their lives, were shunned by their family, were excommunicated by their family, and basically not only by their family, but by their community. And that puts people on rafts. It raises suicide rates. It raises all these different sort of negative consequences of essentially being alone in the world for your belief system. So, as you know, to echo Bryce, he's spot on. This is not an American problem. This is a religion problem in a country that is supposed to be free, where you can express your religious ideology however you wish, even no ideology.
Yeah, Ty, this is just down the road from you. What do you have to say?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention, Bryce had mentioned on the it's commonplace for a lot of other religions on a physical aspect. David spoke to the emotional. I wanted to take a bit more of a nuanced point of view. There's an administrative level of harm that comes with this. I can take anybody on a 10-minute trip in almost any direction from my home, and we will reach an Amish country, regardless of whatever direction we go to. There you have basically a settlement where you have women that can't report sexual abuse. You have children that aren't taught anything beyond, third level education at best. They are non-documented people. So like people who literally cannot leave even if they want to because they're undocumented citizens. You have people that don't pay taxes, yet we build roads for them using taxpayer money so that we can have horse and buggies and proper signage across our main road streets. Yet they're not contributing to this, grand establishment that we call our society. Yet we count out to what their needs are. From an administrative point of view, I feel like there's physical, there's obviously mental and emotional, but then also just the general pain in the butt for everybody to have to deal with this at the same time too, because this doesn't benefit anybody.
That's why we're here. We're here to kick back against the scourge of religion. So you're gonna like this, I think. In Italy, the Church of Saints Peter and Paul staged a nativity featuring not Joseph and Mary, but two mothers.
As the kids nowadays saying, based. So,
I mean,
that's what the kids say.
It should have been done a long time ago because there was no father involved. I mean, the father is God.
Yes.
So why not have two?
Don't dismiss what Joseph did. Okay, everyone gives Joseph a bad rap. He was there. He taught Jesus how to build chairs. He put food on the table. And he stepped up when no one else did. He's the only hero in the Bible that we should respect.
Well, if I were to be apologetic about this, I would say the second woman is the how do you call it, the woman helping the birth. The
midwife.
The midwife. That's it.
or the wet nurse, possibly. Who knows? Anyway, what they
I think they also call him a doula. A doula.
Doula, yeah.
Yeah. So what they said was they wanted to show that families are no longer just the traditional ones. We should now include diverse family structures, including children from gay couples and single parents. Well, you can imagine what sort of a furore that set off in Italy.
Yeah, but I have to say that this is ridiculous because, I mean, I agree that we should encourage different families and views of different families, but you can't take a family who we know there was a mother and a heavenly father and an earthly father and then just pretend that it wasn't those. I mean, you can't take a picture of my family, which is heterosexual, and just erase my husband and say I'm not. It's not accurate.
So I would agree. I would agree with that. But the reason why the reason why I disagree is because I don't believe that this family was real in the first place. I think it's all made up. And I think that if what they're doing is saying that, look, this doesn't have to be real, it's just representing an idea, then it's okay. The question I have is, what does this church believe? Do they actually believe in the doctrines of the Catholic Church, which is anti-gay and homophobic? Or are they a separatist group that thinks that this is all made up and it's just everybody should sing Kumbaya? I don't know.
I think they're a bit confused. Yes. Anyway, here's some really good news. The Church of Scientology is a criminal enterprise that uses celebrities to advance mafia-like racketeering. That's a lawsuit that is being filed in the US somewhere. And the statement is that many of Scientology's criminal enterprises, money-making schemes routinely and systematically engage in fraud, human trafficking, identity theft, and money laundering to fill its coffers and enrich its leadership. What about that?
That just
Are you
seems like a
guys
weird
so-
flex on Catholicism because they've been
Racketeering.
doing that for quite some time, right?
Yes.
They're like,
Well,
we can get
are
this
you
way.
guys aware of the story of the current leader of Scientology? The current leader.
No.
So
Go ahead.
his father,
Miscavige.
the
Is it
leader's
still
father.
David
Miscavige?
Miscavige.
Yeah, I think so. I'm not
Yes.
sure, but I think so. So it rings a bell. So
Mm.
the father of the leader is a man who escaped Scientology and wrote a whole book about being entrapped there and all the shady things they do.
Mm.
So it's
Yeah.
quite interesting.
Yeah.
I'm very glad that this has finally happened, and I do hope that it sets a precedent, because
Yeah.
I think there are many similar sects who do exactly the same thing,
Yeah.
and they are not as famous because they don't have Tom Cruise as one of their members.
Yeah.
In South
Yeah.
Africa, we have regular news about very similar churches that pop up, way smaller than Scientology, but TB Joshua is the standard. I don't, the abuse, children being abducted, people being held against their will, they sucked into it, and they can't get out because they live in compounds, and they're dependent on these organizations, these churches, for their every physical need. And once they're in, they are constantly abused. People are fleeced. So why only Scientology? I mean, I
Yeah.
think it's discriminatory. If I were the Church of Scientology, I would really push back hard, because
Well, they
why-
did, of course. They said
You just, I mean, earlier you mentioned the Hutterites and the Amish. I mean,
Right.
that's
Yeah.
the same situation there.
Yeah, well, the Church of Scientology, of course, said it's outrageous. These are complete fabrications.
Well, of course.
So finally, guys, I want you to react to this.
And on June 14th, 1946, God looked down on his planned paradise and said, I need a caretaker. So God gave us Trump. God said, I need somebody willing to get up before dawn, fix this country, work all day, fight the Marxists, eat supper, then go to the Oval Office and stay past midnight at a meeting of the heads of state. So God made Trump. I need somebody with arms, strong enough to rustle the deep state, and yet gentle enough to deliver his own grandchild. Somebody to ruffle the feathers, tame cantankerous World Economic Forum, come home hungry, have to wait until the First Lady is done with lunch with friends, then tell the ladies to be sure and come back real soon, and mean it. So God gave us Trump.
This
Dude, it
is
sounds
very
like that was-
cringy.
Yeah, it sounded like that was made by AI, and if it wasn't, it was made by someone who was very hungry, because all I heard was just food. Just like God made Trump, but he had lunch and maybe some steak. Yeah, that sounds really good. Maybe he went to Denny's and got a 3 for $3. That's pretty good. Oh man, I'm really hungry right now.
Well, you have to appeal to the people somehow.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
That's true. He
Well,
knows Democrats.
it's so sad because you have this merging of Trump with the evangelical movement. You even saw on January 6th when they were attacking the Capitol that there were radical Christian groups with
White
their
nationalists
with their crosses, and their Confederate flags. So you have this confluence now more than ever of this almost for the most radical, and this is not every Republican, because there are a lot of Republicans who don't like Trump,
Yeah.
So,
Hands up,
but
hands up, guys, if that's persuaded you to vote Trump.
Well,
I'm
Do this.
biased, let's say.
If they put a Denny's logo at the end of that commercial, I might be persuaded to check them out. I'd be like,
But
okay.
I would ask
One's left
David,
behind,
I'm curious because you just said this is not all Republicans, and I agree with you. It's not all of them, but
Right.
certainly the majority of Republican voters will be voting for Trump. This is not something that bothers them to the extent that they would consider not voting for him. So aren't they complicit with it?
Yeah, I mean,
feel-
Trump is a carnival barker. He's a con man, and there was someone who said that there's a sucker born every minute. So
P.T. Barnum.
P.T. Barnum. So if you give money to the Trump campaign, or if you vote for Trump, then you're a sucker. I mean, it's that simple. But what this did was make me want to vote for Biden an additional 6 times.
It made me want to vomit.
Yeah, it's really just so sad, because first of all, I think Trump, until he became president, was probably an atheist.
He is.
Well, he still is. There's every reason to believe that he still is.
Yeah, he can't quote the Bible. He holds it up. He holds it up upside down. But they love him.
David, if you think you're God, is that technically atheism?
What's that?
If you think you're God,
God believes in himself.
But here's what Trump did for the evangelicals, something that has been going on since Reagan, and this is a buildup, is the rejection of a woman's right to her reproductive freedom.
Oh, yeah.
That's where the loyalty comes in for most of the evangelicals, because they think that Trump can get these really radical religious things to be part of the body politic in America. And that's what we have to really stand up against as well.
I would just like to comment on what Bryce said. And I follow American news more than I follow South African political news. So I am astonished at the fact that the Republican Party, to the best of my knowledge, as a party mechanism, I don't see any sign that they push back against Donald Trump. So with I think something like 13% of the eligible Republican voters voted in the Iowa caucus. But where's the rest? I don't see them. I don't hear them speaking up. They just sort of keep quiet. And that tells me that they are, by being silent, they are implicitly condoning what Donald Trump stands for. And I think that's hugely problematic. If I'm wrong, I stand corrected.
Well,
are you waving, Diogo? You want to come in?
I've heard the how do you pronounce it? Iowa caucuses was only voted by Republicans, right?
Right.
Yes.
So it is no surprise most of them voted Trump.
No.
I feel Trump isn't very liked by the Republican Party anymore.
No.
They thought he would be sort of a useful idiot of some sort when he was president, but he's more of a wild card. So
there's 2 things to that. There is the Republican establishment, which are the people in government, the elected officials. Most of them, the senators, the congressmen, the governors, they don't like Trump because they represent what the Republican Party used to be. He's not a neocon like they are. He sort of, he has his own agenda and it's all about himself. The problem is the second element, which are the constituents, the voters. Trump does appeal to most of them. They like him more than they like the establishment because they don't have any trust in the establishment. And really they shouldn't, but also because he's been able to con them in such a way to get them on his side. So he's co-opted the Republican Party into his brand. And that's what all of the voters want. It doesn't matter what the rest of the people in Washington think the Republican brand should be. They hate Trump, but he's the one that has the power in their party. He's the one that people are going towards.
And therefore they will bow to him.
Yeah.
This is why I like watching American politics so much. It's a complete circus, not boring at all.
Yeah. So
there's a lot of conflicting things happening all the time.
Yes. It's all crazy. Beware.
One message to that, just as an American, I have to defend it. Democracy is fragile. And we keep saying that. And while it is a circus, it's something that we need to look at, because this can happen to anyone that wants to aspire to having a democracy, regardless of whatever state their democracy is in. So like we can call this out and we can say, hey, this is funny, but if we don't follow that up with awareness or warnings or some sort of action, then we have a problem where this can only cycle into worse, and we would then be, to a point, a part of the circus. So, you know, let's call out a dancing monkey on a unicycle for what it is, and say like, we deserve better, and strive to vote and change in a peaceful format.
On those wise words,
Bravo.
guys,
Yes.
I'm going to call the show to an end. So thank you very much for taking part.
Good to
Thank
see
you,
everyone.
anybody. Thank you, anybody who's viewing this either now. Oh, no, you can't view it now. It's not live. In the future.
Tersia, I love your hair.
You podcasters.
Yeah, it looks
Oh,
great.
thank you. You haven't seen it. Ha, ha, ha.
Yeah, it's very nice.
The new Tersia 2024 version.
Bravo.
Say bye-bye.
Was the Pope appealing for peace, or was he praying for peace?
And the same applies to the carried and drag.
Yeah, that's a good question. So what do you have to say about that, guys?